Thank you, sir.
We request our principal, Ms. Bharti to welcome and felicitate our guest of honor, Ms. Aruna Roy.
We request Dr. Varsha and Ms. Aruna Roy to light the lamp in front of the portrait of Dr. Mrs. Deepa.
We now request Mr. Anupam Martins to deliver the welcome address and introduce the keynote speaker, Dr. Varsha Das, and the guest of honor, Ms. Aruna Roy.
Honorable Keynote Speaker, Dr. Varsha Das, our co-host of this lecture series, Ms. Aruna Roy, Principal Mahabharata, members of the governing body of St. Stephen's School Society, friends and well-wishers of St. Stephen's, members of the staff, and my dear students. On behalf of the Governing Council of St. Stephen's School Society, and on my own behalf, it is my pleasure to welcome each and every one of you to the 19th Dr. Deepa Martin's Memorial Lecture. As this is our first hybrid lecture, I welcome all of you in the auditorium today, as well as those joining us on YouTube Live, and those watching this later as a recorded address. It is my privilege to introduce and welcome our keynote speaker, Dr. Varsha Das. Dr. Varsha Das has done her Masters in Sanskrit and Hindi from the University of Bombay and a doctorate in education from Osmania University, Hyderabad. She has nearly 100 publications to her credit. They include originals, translations, adaptations in the genres of fiction, non-fiction, radio plays, poetry, and books for children. She writes in Gujarati, Hindi, and English, and translates from Bangla, Marathi, and Oriya. Being born and raised in a family of freedom fighters in Bombay, she imbibed Gandhian values in her formative years. She received training in writing and journalism from her father, Mohanlal Mehta Sopan, in her teens, and began to translate speeches and essays of Gandhiji, Jawaharlal Nehru, Sardar Patel, Vinoba Bhave, and other luminaries from Hindi, English, and Marathi into Gujarati for the journals published by her father. She has been an art critic for the past 55 years. After moving to Delhi in 1968, she was associated with the translation and compilation work of the collected works of Mahatma Gandhi. She worked on the biographies of freedom fighters for the National Book Trust and translated Gandhi Alive into Hindi for young readers, published by the National Book Trust. Madhuban Educational Books have published her English translation and abridgment of Gandhiji's autobiography. Her lecture on Gandhiji Ka Saundarya Shastra aur Kala has been published by the Rajasthan Adult Education Association in Hindi, and Looking for Gandhi in Our Times, published by the Publications Division, is a compilation of her lectures on Gandhiji. Her articles on Gandhiji and Kasturba have been published across various journals. She has worked in close collaboration with the Navjeevan Trust and the Gujarat Vidyapeeth, Emblem, on various projects. She has been a speaker at many national and international seminars at the University of Meerut, at Colombo in Sri Lanka, at Madrid in Spain, at the Institute of Gandhian Studies at Varsha, the Mahila Mahabharata PhD Varanasi, and also to a number of schools and colleges in Delhi, the All India Radio, and on various television channels. During her tenure at the National Book Trust, she has taken the initiative for bringing out a number of books on Gandhiji, Gandhian thought, and reprints of some Gandhian The story of Satyagraha in photographs has been published in Hindi and English by the National Anthem Museum, New Delhi. Her books for adults and children have been published in Gujarati, Hindi and English, and we are delighted to have received from you a copy of several of your publications. So thank you so much, ma'am, for carrying them with you and bringing them to St. Stephen's. She has been a resource person with the Asia Pacific Cultural Center for UNESCO, Tokyo, and the National Literacy Mission India for literacy and book development programs. She has been a member of several award selection committees on art, literature and literacy, and is the recipient of several awards from prestigious institutions, including the Sahitya Academy, New Delhi, and the Gujarat Sahitya Parishad, Emblem. She worked with the National Book Trust, India, as the Chief Editor, Joint Director, and Acting Director. She was the Deputy Director of the Directorate of Adult Education, Government of India, and the Deputy Secretary of the Lalit Kala Academy. She was the Chairperson of the Advisory Board of the Adivasi Academy, Gujarat. She is a trustee of many significant organizations, including the Gandhi Smarak Nidhi and the Rajasthan Adult Education Association. Dr. Das has been invited by Indian missions abroad to speak on timelessness of Mahatma Gandhi. She gave lectures and participated in seminars in Suriname, Brunei, Johannesburg, Nepal, Israel, and Bahrain. She spoke at the International Peace Conference at the Indira Gandhi National Center for Arts, at the Sahitya Academy, at the MIT World Peace University, Pune, and at the Center for Cultural Resources and Training. She was interviewed by Doordarshan at Urdu channel about her association with Gandhiji, which was telecast in more than 40 countries. After her retirement from the NPT, Dr. Das joined the National Gandhi Museum in New Delhi as director from 2006 to 2010. We thank you, ma'am, for consenting to deliver the 19th Dr. Deepa Martin's Memorial Lecture, and we look forward to being benefited from and being inspired by your views. I would now like to acknowledge and welcome, after a period of 3 years back, Ms. Aruna Roy, who, similar to earlier years, has helped bring Dr. Varsha Das to St. Stephen's and has been helping and inspiring Stephanians and the intelligentsia of Ajmer with the views of a thought-provoking social activist each year. Ms. Aruna Roy, as all of us know well, is one of India's most prominent activists. In 1975, she resigned from the Indian Administrative Service to work with the rural poor in Rajasthan. Along with Nikhil Dey, Shankar Singh, and several others from the local community in Devdungri, she collectively formed the Mazdoor Kisan Shakti Sangathan, the MKSS, for the empowerment of workers and farmers. The MKSS played a pivotal role in advocating for the right to information law, which was passed by the Indian Parliament in 2005. Ms. Roy works for the access of the poor to constitutional rights, for equality and justice, including the right to work and food security. She is a prominent member of many democratic struggles and campaigns. In 2000, she was awarded the Ramon Magsaysay Award. In 2010, she received the Lal Bahadur Shastri National Award for Excellence in Public Administration, Academia and Management. In 2011, she was named one of the 100 most influential people in the world by Time magazine. In September 2017, India Times listed her as one of the 11 human rights activists whose life's mission is to provide others with a dignified life. She was also appointed Professor of Practice in Global Governance at McGill University in Montreal. Ms. Roy, along with the MKSS Collective, has also published the RTI story, Power to the People. I express our deep gratitude to Ms. Aruna Roy on behalf of all the generations of Stephanians who benefit from her wisdom each year and from her commitment to this lecture series. I now provide a brief introduction to the Dr. Deepa Martin's Memorial Lecture Series. Dr. Deepa Martins was the founder secretary of the governing body of St. Stephen's School Society and its founding light from its conceptualization until April 2003, when we lost her to the Almighty. While her legacy as a co-founder remains ingrained in all aspects of the ethos of this institution, this lecture series has, for the last 19 years, helped us immortalize her memory for posterity in the way she would most relate to: socially aware and informed conversation, rooted in the principles of love, compassion, and harmony, with a bias towards action. On 5th April, her birthday, over the last 19 years, the school and Ajmer community have benefited from visits of distinguished women in various fields who have shared their thoughts with us through this series. The topics of these lectures have been close to Dr. Deepa Martins' life and work: promoting communal harmony and a secular society, women's issues linked to health, constitutional rights and gender equality, Kabir, inclusive learning and social activism through music, dance, theatre, art, journalism, literature, and working with the marginalized. We've had the privilege to welcome and host luminaries including Ms. Mrinal Pandey, Dr. C.S. Lakshmi, Ms. Indira Jaisingh, Ms. Madhu Kishwar, Dr. Shanta Sinha, Dr. Saida Hamid, Ms. Vrinda Grover, Ms. Kamala Bhasin, Dr. Meenakshi Gopinath, Dr. Malika Sarabhai, Professor Tripurari Sharma, Mr. Vinay Mahajan and Ms. Chalul Barbada, Dr. Swarnmalya Ganesh, Ms. Shabnam Girmani, Ms. Maya Krishna Rao, Ms. Pamela Philippos, Dr. Ginny Srivastav, and Ms. Rajni Bakshi. Ms. Aruna Roy, as a close friend and co-worker of Dr. Deepa Martins, has graced us with her presence as a co-host of this lecture series. Every 6 years, the school brings out a compilation of these lectures called Deepalaya to capture these powerful messages for posterity. We feel privileged to release the 3rd volume of Deepalaya today, which comprise the 13th to the 18th lectures. We are grateful to Ms. Aruna Roy for writing the foreword of the volume that will be released today as well. Today, we gather to witness the 19th lecture in this series, to reflect on the value of reading, art and literature, spaces close to Dr. Deepa Martins' life and work where she contributed to substantially in various capacities. I'm delighted to welcome you back to the campus of St. Stephen's for this, our 19th Dr. Deepa Martins Memorial Lecture. Thank you.
We now invite the Secretary of St. Stephen's School Society, Ms. Shefali Martins, to give an insight into the life and times of Dr. Mrs. Deepa Martins.
Good morning. In alignment with the topic for today, I would like to give an introduction to Dr. Deepa Martins in terms of 5 Hindi words that define her life, work and philosophy. They are Samarpan, Samanvay, Samashti, Samvedna, Samvad. A contextual English translation would give us dedication, harmony, universality, empathy, and dialogue. Born on April 5, 1951, to a Kumaoni family in Ajmer, Ms. Deepa Pant was part of a family dedicated to the values of education and service. She was the youngest of 7 brothers and 3 sisters, and along with pampering their beloved child, Shri Bhagwan Vallabh, her father, and Lakshmi Devi, her mother, instilled in her strong values of patriotism, sensitivity, and magnanimity. As a student of class 7th, she would sit with her father's college students and learn grammar. Their home opened to whoever wanted to come and study and grow in their lives. No wonder then, she not only excelled in academics from the very beginning, but was equally good at debating, dramatics, and writing. Dr. Deepa also inspired her friends towards academic and creative pursuits. Friendships she nurtured back in childhood were maintained her entire life. Many years down the line, continuing her family legacy, she too created a home where everyone was welcome to come, study, and learn. After doing her secondary and intermediate from Savitri School, Ajmer, she pursued her BA from Savitri College and completed her Masters in English from Government College, Ajmer in 1972. She began her work as a lecturer in English at Shramjeevi College. She then pursued her Masters in Hindi and chose her alma mater, Savitri College, as her workplace, where she continued to work as a lecturer in Hindi from 1975. Bilingual excellence was a way of life for her. As an educationist and humanist, she balanced the roles of teacher and friend and made a special place in the hearts of her students who remember her drawing examples from Shelley and Keats in a Chayavad class of Hindi poetry. Similarly, Premchand's values reflected in references from Shakespeare in her classes. Her students would not miss a single class because the depth of her knowledge, strengthened by her power to communicate well, charmed them, and she went out of her way each time to help them gain knowledge. She became a role model for so many of them, and even now, after decades of their graduation, their point of reference of their college days continue to be her classes. Another word in a word that reflects her being is Samanvay, harmony. Harmony is about a balance that does not compromise on identity. Dr. Deepa embraced harmony in the broader perspective in her personal life as well. In 1973, when one would rarely hear of intercaste marriages in small-town India, she chose to marry her MA classmate, Sri Gilroy Martins. If you stood facing the altar above the fireplace in the drawing room of the Martins household, to the left there was a big window and its broad sill. The window was shut and the sill became her mandir. The sight was very unusual in a traditional Catholic family back in the day, but created an exemplary space where different cultures blend together and coexist beautifully, with no side having to compromise on identity. The idea of samashti, a sense of universality with the importance of individuality, surrounded all of Dr. Deepa's endeavors. She significantly contributed to the world she came into by reaching out and spreading faith, hope, and love. She believed that just visualization would not create a better society. It is also important to work towards one. And so, along with balancing her numerous roles as a family person and a working professional, she entered the realm of grassroots activism. She was deeply passionate about interfaith harmony and women's issues. And in creating a world where women recognize and respect their own identity. Bold, clear, and fearless that she was, in her words, "If there is even one woman in my city with tears in her eyes, and if I can be instrumental in wiping them away, I would consider myself fortunate. It is our collective responsibility to work towards women empowerment. Why don't we talk about working together and walking together for this cause?" This fearless dedication to a cause came with samvedna, empathy, and samvad, dialogue. In Mahila Samu, an organization that she co-founded with her friends, when she would be confronted with various cases, she would stress on the importance of conversation, of dialogue. She believed in supporting a cause through protests and rallies, but would insist on first finding a way out through dialogue. She would always say, "A difference in opinion should not lead to a difference in hearts." A thought cherished, adapted, and absorbed by her activist friends who often use this as life's essential wisdom that keeps them going in difficult times. Her friends say that even those who would differ in opinion could not hold a personal difference with her owing to her endearing ways and her quality of keeping everyone together. There was another dimension of universality that she propagated, that of entirety. And so she would be absorbed in the details of life. Wishing loved ones first on their birthdays, or posting cards and baking cakes for them mattered as much as organizing a rally on a large scale, as did carrying tiffins of food for her co-workers, whether in college or in her broader circle of grassroots activism. People who knew her well often said that she had not 24 but 48 hours in her day because of the way she found time for everything, with each aspect being a priority. Entirety and universality were her way of life, and more people would enter her circle of friends and co-workers every single day. Here at St. Stephen's, she was not only involved in the day-to-day activities, but would meticulously plan all major events. She'd also take classes in the school, much to the delight of the students who loved her positivity and enthusiasm and the love that she showered on them. irrespective of her schedule, she always found time to read and research. Whether it was waking up at 4 a.m. to translate works of Kabir or staying up to read literary magazines, literary pursuits were often her me time. Having a conversation with students, leading an issue-based rally, working on an academic conference, spending time with family, or writing prose and poetry, each of her acts had a sense of optimism and celebration, completeness and depth. In her life of 52 years, her positivity, happiness, harmony, sensitivity, her ability to reach out to everyone, and the undeterring will to stand for righteousness gave her a unique place in the hearts of hundreds of people. Dr. Deepa, true to her name, kindled the light of love and commitment, propagated a culture of openness and dialogue, and left a legacy of conversation and acts that continues to strengthen the belief in leading a complete life with the ethos of dedication, harmony, universality, empathy, and dialogue. Thank you.
We have compiled the keynote addresses of our eminent keynote speakers at the Dr. Mrs. Deepa Martin's Memorial Lectures from 2016 to 2021. This compilation is the third volume of Deepa.
We request Mr. Anupam Martins, Ms. Bharti Columbia, and Ms. Shefali Martins to come on the stage and request Dr. Varsha Das and Ms. Aruna Roy to release the third volume of Deepa. Guest of honor, Ms. Aruna Roy, to address the gathering.
Anupam, Shefali, Bharti, family St. Stephen's, and friends and family of Deepa, all my friends from Ajmer and from other places who are watching this on the air. Varsha, who is a very old friend and a very dear friend. Today I'll just take 2 minutes to say something about Deepa. I've written the foreword, so I won't repeat what I've said there. I just want to say a few things. Deepa, to whom I lit a diya today, has remained a light in my life ever since I met her. She's been extraordinary, but she brought together so many different skeins of life and living, which are so critical to a good human being. She was kind, she was intelligent, she was beautiful, she was warm, she was critical, she had boundless energy. I have not known anyone who had the kind of energy that Deepa had. इतना उनमें ऊर्जा था कि वो सुबह से शाम तक, जैसे उनके बच्चों ने कहा, कभी रुकी नहीं। मैं सोचती हूँ जिंदगी भर नहीं रुकी, और वो एनर्जी जो चला गया है उसके एक बहुत बड़ी दुख है हमारे सब में। आज वर्षा आई हैं, and Varsha is going to speak incidentally also of Gandhiji, I am sure. It's not possible for Varsha, who's been steeped in the life and work of Mahatma Gandhi, not to refer to him. गांधी जी ने अपने सोच में और बातचीत में कई बार कहा था कि करनी और कथनी में फर्क नहीं होना चाहिए। दीपा की जिंदगी में करनी और कथनी में कभी फर्क नहीं रहा। तो in that sense, I think Deepa was the ultimate Gandhian, because what she thought, she worked on, and what she felt, she translated into thought. Since we have to hear Varsha, we must hear Varsha today. I won't take more time, and I just want to say that this great woman was a scholar, was an activist, a theoretician, a teacher, a mother, a friend, and so many other things, continues to guide us today. And in this extraordinary character of having so many different layers, she lives in our minds. She was a source of energy when she lived. She is a source of energy even after she is gone, because she has pulled us all together today to think of her, to rejoice in what she was, and to commemorate her memory with words, sometimes with song, and of course with wonderful thoughts. Thank you very much for coming, and thanks for having me.
We now request Dr. Varsha Das to deliver the keynote address on the topic, The Value of Reading, Art and Literature, a Gandhian Perspective.
My pranams to all of you here in the hall and those who are watching from wherever. I'm grateful to Arunaji, Anupamji, Shefaliji and Bhartiji for giving me this wonderful opportunity to come to Ajmer and meet all of you. The school emblem depicts the spirit of the school, which was the spirit of Sri Gilroy Martins and Dr. Deepa Martins, that is onward and upward. So now it is our responsibility to keep moving forward and upward on the path created by them. All paths are not very smooth in life. We may stumble, trip, fumble, doesn't matter. Even if we fall, we get up with greater confidence in ourselves and continue the journey. That journey requires physical and mental strength, seeking spirit, desire to learn more, and explore new areas in and around us. It is that seeking spirit, not only our age, which keeps our minds and hearts youthful. I have been requested by Anupamji to speak on the value of reading, art and literature, a Gandhian perspective. I am not a historian, not even a scholar of Gandhian studies. But you'll be happy to know that I was blessed by Gandhiji when I was 1.5 years old. My parents and grandparents were active participants in India's freedom struggle. My grandfather, Amritlal Sheth, was working directly under Gandhiji's guidance and as instructed by him, led the salt satyagraha at Dholera, a coastal town of western Gujarat. So when Gandhiji had come to Mumbai in 1944, where he was meeting people at the Juhu beach, my parents took me to him for his blessings. He had a big basket of mangoes next to him. He not only put his hand on my head, even gave me a mango. Maybe because of that baton, I got an opportunity to work at the National Gandhi Museum. I started reading books written by Gandhiji, organized several thematic exhibitions in the museum, and started speaking about him. And as I kept on reading his views and actions on various topics, I felt that he is timeless. He will always remain relevant. He has spoken on almost everything under the sun. It is amazing to see his depth of knowledge and pragmatic approach to the welfare of human beings. He was the man of the masses. The 23rd of April is World Book Day. UNESCO celebrated it for the first time on the 3rd of April in 1995. It is therefore quite appropriate that we talk about Gandhiji's interest in reading books in the month of April. did he find time to read? He went to England, studied law, became a barrister. He returned to India, then went to South Africa to work for Sheikh Abdullah to translate Gujarati legal documents into English. He went through a lot of humiliation because he was from India. But he did not feel defeated, nor was he fearful of the situation. Looking at the pathetic condition of migrated Indian community, he brought them together and showed them the path of a non-violent fight against exploitation and injustice. And instead of 1 year, he stayed there for almost 22 years. Gandhiji altered the course of history. He manifested and utilized his inner potential and empowered hundreds and thousands of fellow human beings to do the same. As mentioned in his autobiography, and I quote him, "During the days of my education, I had practically read nothing outside textbooks. And after I launched into active life, I had very little time left for reading. I cannot therefore claim much book knowledge. However, I believe I have not lost much because of this enforced restraint. On the contrary, the limited reading may be said to have enabled me thoroughly to digest what I did read." I think the last sentence in my view is the most important one. Without digesting what we read, we cannot retain it. And if we cannot retain, we cannot benefit from it. So when we retain, it becomes our wisdom. Till then, it is information or knowledge. So Gandhiji was deeply influenced by several books. As mentioned in one book, which is a comprehensive annotated bibliography on Mahatma Gandhi, it has been compiled in 3 volumes by Anand Panderi and has been published in 1995. Gandhiji had read 353 books, and this he calls a small number. This is besides innumerable journals and newspapers that he used to read regularly and also write for them. So when he says he had read, he had also digested them. 353 is a small number according to him, but each book is a classic. I wish I could give a gist of each one, but that would require several days of seminar, I guess. So let me share just a couple of titles that had tremendous impact on him externally and internally. These books played an important role in his journey from Mohandas to Mahatma in South Africa. He continued reading and writing even during his 10 imprisonments, which of course took place in India between 1990 to 1942. I'll begin with 2 authors, John Ruskin and Leo Tolstoy. He had read them in South Africa. His friend Henry Pollack had gone to see him off at the railway station. He gave him John Ruskin's book, Unto This Last, to read during the journey from Johannesburg to Durban. It was a 24-hour journey. Mohandas started reading. It had such a magical spell on him that he could not lay it aside. It was the first book of Ruskin's Mohandas had ever read. It brought about an instantaneous and practical transformation in his life. He translated it later into Gujarati, entitling it Sarvodaya, the welfare of all. And he has summarized its teachings in 3 points. The first, that the good of the individual is contained in the good of all. Second, that a lawyer's work had the same value as the barber's, since all have the same right of earning their livelihood from their work. And the third, that life of labor, that is the life of a tiller of the soil and the handicraftsman, is the life worth living. Mohandas knew the first one, the second he dimly realized. The third one had never occurred to him. But he realized on reading Ruskin's book that the second and third were actually contained in the first one. And he decided to put these principles into practice. This realization was his empowerment. So what he read, he digested, and he put it into practice and took action on it. During his stay in South Africa, Mohandas read an essay written by Leo Nikolaevich Tolstoy. This was a letter to a Hindu. Now the word Hindu here is not the one who was practicing Hinduism, but our country was known as Hindustan, so he was addressing an Indian, and they were called Hindu because they lived in Hindustan. He was thrilled to find in it the message of civil disobedience. Tolstoy had commented on the ongoing unrest and rise of violence in India. And I quote him, he advocated that non-violence or passive resistance was the solution to redress the political situation in India, unquote. And this is exactly what Mohandas was trying to do in South Africa. So on the 1st of October in 1909, he wrote to Tolstoy, seeking his permission to translate and publish his letter to a Hindu in Africa, while Gandhiji was in Africa. Now, before reading this essay, he had read Tolstoy's another book, The Gospel in Brief. He read it in Durban during his first year in South Africa. He was so deeply impressed by this book that he wrote a letter to Tolstoy, and after that they maintained their correspondence. Gandhiji says that it opened his vision to the indefinite possibilities of universal love. Gandhiji mentions in his autobiography that Tolstoy's book, The Kingdom of God is Within You, which was published in 1899, converted him to non-violence. It was not based on Hindu ideology, but was based on the ideas of the New Testament. In the Hindustan Standard, a daily newspaper published in Calcutta, Gandhiji's following statement was published, and I quote it, "Independence of my conception means nothing less than the realization of the kingdom of God within you and on this earth. I would rather work for and die in the pursuit of this dream, though it may never be realized. That means infinite patience and perseverance," unquote. So, till we meet our goals and targets, we continue. And for that, we require patience and perseverance. When Gandhiji read Henry David Thoreau's book on the duty of civil disobedience, he wrote its simplified version in Gujarati and published it in the form of a series of articles in his journal, Indian Opinion, in the year 1907. And just as we like to read books of our interest, Gandhiji also read books of his interest. When he found his views in sync with some authors' views, he had the urge to translate them into Gujarati for wider dissemination. How many of us have read Jonathan Swift's Gulliver's Travels? Yeah, can we raise our hands? Yeah, quite a few of my generation mainly, and some younger ones also. So I had read its Gujarati translation during my school days. Gandhiji read it in South Africa. And in one of his letters to his nephew, he gave a detailed review of the book and called it an effective condemnation of modern civilization written in an ironic vein. These are Gandhiji's words. So Gandhiji could make such a profound comment because he digested whatever he read. For me, it was a fun book. I just enjoyed reading it. When Gandhiji read Plato's book, Defense and Death of Socrates, he recommended that it should be read in conjunction with Hind Swaraj, which he had written in 1909. And that book was actually his vision for India, independent India. A year ago, that is in 1908, he had paraphrased Plato's work into English as The Story of a Soldier of Truth, and had published it in his journal, Indian Opinion. It was banned by the British government. So he translated it into Gujarati. Even that was banned. It was declared that the matter contained in the book was seditious. The last book that I would like to talk about is Bhagavad-Gita. Gandhiji had not read the Sanskrit book. He had come across the English translation done from Sanskrit by Sir Edwin Arnold. And it was published in 1885. So Gandhiji read it around 1889 when he was just about 20 years old and was studying in London. Bhagavad-Gita had become Gandhiji's dictionary of daily reference. He turned to it for solace and guidance whenever he found himself confronted by doubts and difficulties, trials and troubles. It became his infallible guide of conduct. Gandhiji has mentioned in his autobiography, and again I quote him, I understood more clearly in the light of the Gita teaching the implication of the word trustee. I understood the Gita teaching of non-possession to mean that those who desired salvation should act like trustees who, though having control over great possessions, regard not an iota of them as his own. It became clear to me as daylight that non-possession, that is aparigraha, and equability, that is samabhav, presupposed a change of heart, a change of attitude. Unquote. Such an insight shows that Gandhiji was inspired by the books which made a person a better human being. Instead of worrying about one's own happiness, the person is thinking about others' well-being. Such an attitude would certainly lead to a harmony among the people of all communities and also with the nature and environment. He could talk about the most profound philosophical concepts with ease in the language of a common person. All of us are busy with our studies of various responsibilities in our daily life. Where is the time to read books? It is therefore important to choose the right kind of book that would nurture us. It is not nature but nurture that makes all the difference. It initiates the process of self-improvement. In an era of television, videos, social media, etc., we don't much bother about printed books. When auto correction is available on the computer, why bother about grammar and spellings? When the internet provides all the information at the click of a button, why read so many books? That is the most dangerous trap. You get into the habit of cutting and pasting. You stop getting fresh ideas because you have ignored your own creativity. Gandhiji got new ideas from the books he read. He digested that reading, took action based on them, and the whole world benefited from what he said. So, actually, his life is the message. Now, let us see what Gandhiji thought of art. As mentioned earlier, he says he has spoken and written about everything under the sun, and that includes art and literature. Gandhiji's views on art and literature were straightforward as he himself was. He believed that all true art is always simple and natural. It should be understood by all. There should not be any need for the artist or the writer to explain it to the viewer or the reader. Gandhiji's views on beauty are connected with human beings and nature. And that is not limited to what one sees with one's naked eyes. Real beauty, according to him, is the purity of heart. For example, he wrote in his journal Harijan in April 1946, and I quote him, "Why can't you see the beauty of color in vegetables?" I mean, when I read this sentence, I immediately thought of the vegetable shop, and you find that the brinjals are purple and the lemons are yellow and the mooli reddish is white with green leaves and tomatoes are red. I mean, so many colors right in front of us. We have never bothered to see them as colors. He further says, and then there is beauty in the speckless sky. But no, you want the colors of the rainbow, which is a mere optical illusion. We have been taught to believe that what is beautiful need not be useful, and that what is useful cannot be beautiful. I want to show that what is useful can also be beautiful, unquote. So beautiful and useful are not mutually contradictory terms. A rainbow, as we know, is an arch showing prismatic colors in their order formed in the sky opposite the sun by reflection, double refraction, and dispersion on the sun's rays in falling drops of the rain. It looks beautiful. Even Gandhiji might have found it beautiful. However, since it is not solid substance, only an optical illusion, it fades away after some time. Gandhiji draws our attention to the elusive beauty of the rainbow and not to get trapped by such illusions in our daily life. In his other journal, Young India, in November 24, Gandhiji writes, "Truth, that is Satyam, is the first thing to be sought for, and beauty, that is Sundaram, and goodness, Shivam, will then be added unto you." Jesus was, to my mind, a supreme artist because he saw and expressed truth. And so was Muhammad, the Quran being the most perfect composition in all Arabic literature. At any rate, this is what scholars say. It is because both of them strove first for truth that the grace of expression naturally came in, and yet neither Jesus or Muhammad wrote on art. That is the truth and beauty I crave for, live for, and would die for, unquote. This is what Gandhiji said. He deeply respected Tolstoy. They had never met. Their age difference was almost 40 years. But his book, What is Art? It was first published in Russian in 1898. And the book was translated into English by Aylmer Maude and was published in 1930. By then, Tolstoy was no more. In his introduction, Maud says, Tolstoy was intensely interested at different times in many different subjects, but was always interested in art. It took him 15 years to elucidate the idea expressed in what is art, unquote. So Tolstoy was, of course, no more when Gandhiji could lay his hands on this book. However, we do find some similarities in their views on art and beauty. Great thinkers always think alike. We are talking about Gandhiji's India long before it became independent. So Indian National Congress, the only major political party at that time, used to organize conferences. And one such conference was organized in a village called Kaliparaj in Gujarat on the 18th of January 1925. Gandhiji was quite impressed by the way the place was tastefully adorned. He said, and I quote him, it seems nature itself has decorated the place. To learn from nature and not to hurt it in any manner is the real art. There were no artificial embellishments, not even a carpet or floor covering. The main dais had a canopy of bamboos and green leaves. The path to the dais had bamboos tied with creepers. Steps to the dais were created by sacks filled with sand. There was no man-made picture or objects, not even handspun fiber. Gandhiji was so pleased to see this that he said, where there is the sky as the canopy and sand as the seat, only trees and leaves can adorn the place. Gandhiji's love for nature and his eye to see beauty in it is evident from this. He was a great admirer of famous artist Nandalal Bose, who used to live, learn and teach in Shantiniketan, which was founded by Gurudev Rabindranath Tagore. There is one interesting episode narrated by Professor K.G. Subramaniam. He was Nanda Babu's student in Shantiniketan, and later he was a professor at MS University in Vadodara. I came across this beautiful anecdote in the centenary journal, which was published by the National Gallery of Modern Art during Nandalal Bose's centenary exhibition that was organized in 1983. And I quote K.G. Subramaniam. He says, in 1936, Nandalal's name came up for wide national publicity. That year, Mahatma Gandhi invited him to set up an art exhibition in Lucknow to go with the session of the Indian National Congress to be held in that city. He accepted the invitation with some diffidence. He was a confirmed admirer of the Mahatma, but had not yet met him personally and was unaware of his tastes and predilections. Besides, art never seemed to be anywhere near the center of Mahatma's interests. For all the initial misgivings of Nandalal, the exhibition was a great success. Nandalal had set it up with impeccable taste, using the simplest possible means. The Mahatma was taken aback, according to Nandalal. For a man who had reputation of being insensitive to art, he showed enlightened interest in the exhibition, visiting it more than once and making such observations as showed a very responsive mind. With this, Nandalal became for the Mahatma the national artist, one who could create an art that could reach down to the lowest of the low, eschewing all luxurious and elitist trappings. And now let us see what Nanda Babu said about this exhibition. When he was asked by Gandhiji to arrange an art exhibition at the Lucknow Congress and take full responsibility, Nanda Babu said, and again I quote him, I had heard that Gandhiji was not very particular in the matters of art, but my impression turned out to be totally wrong. He looked at and examined each painting with an artistic vision. I became completely aware of his sense of art and aesthetics from one small incident that took place over there. The exhibition hall was decorated with very simple materials. Seeing our work, he expressed happiness. We had taken care of minute details while decorating the hall, but someone had left a bucket under a table by mistake. It had escaped our notice, but the moment Gandhiji entered, he immediately said, "Don't you think that bucket is ruining the beauty of this place?" And now this happens to all of us. When we find something which needs to be removed, we say, "Abhi idhar rakh do, baad mein rakhenge." And that is what happened here. And according to Gandhiji, that ruined the beauty. So, taking care of minute details, not only in artwork, but also in the surrounding area, is what we learn from this episode. There was another conference at Faizpur. Gandhiji wanted Nanda Babu to take charge of this exhibition and requested him to meet him at Wardha 2 months before the conference. He apprised him of his vision. Gandhiji did not want Nanda Babu to bring precious paintings from Kala Bhavan of Shantiniketan because untimely rain could spoil them. Gandhiji knew that Nanda Babu would do justice to his vision. In one of his letters to Kashinath Trivedi, Gandhiji had once written that Nanda Babu was a creative artist, whereas he was not. God had gifted him artistic sensitivity, but not bestowed upon him creative faculty that could give it a form. Nanda Babu was gifted with both. Nanda Babu had reached Faizpur weeks before the inauguration of the exhibition. He visited farmers' homes in nearby villages, selected various objects that they used in their day-to-day life, but had never observed anything artistic in them. The selection of objects was made by Nanda Babu's keen eyes, and when he displayed them in the exhibition, they all looked so different, as if they had adorned a new form. Not only the place of the Congress conference, the whole Tilak Nagar, right from its entry gate, had become an exhibition. The gate was a beautiful example of rural art. Nanda Babu had engaged local labor and artisans and had used all the material that was available locally. The exhibition was formally inaugurated. Gandhiji wanted the common people and also freedom fighters to see the exhibition and experience the confluence of patriotism, local resources, and aesthetics. The artisans from Andhra had made small purses, cases to keep spectacles, etc., from the grass that grew at the riverbank. Some artisans had made paper from bamboo, from the skin of bananas, and also from munja grass. The purpose of this exhibition was not to give the message of art for art's sake, but it was aimed at well-being of all, which included those involved in the cottage industry and also those who purchased those items for their use. Well-being of the masses has been the prime objective of all the activities Gandhiji himself conducted and encouraged others to do the same. In his inaugural speech, Gandhiji said, "This exhibition is not a fun show, nor has it been put up with an intention to dazzle or delude people. This is purely an educational effort. The only purpose is to let the rural folks know that if they properly use their hands and feet and the material and resources available around them, they can double their income." Gandhiji convinced all those present there that if lakhs of unemployed Indians get engaged in the cottage industry and khadi, they can earn their living honestly. Dust can turn into gold if people use their hands for positive and constructive work. Another Congress conference was organized in Haripura in Gujarat in February 1938. Responsibility of decoration was again given to Nanda Babu. Once again, an exhibition on khadi and the cottage industry was organized. This time, Nanda Babu gave an additional attraction. There were 88 panels of paintings in the Patua style of Bengal, depicting ordinary events of daily life like Shehnai Wala, Dugdugi Wala, mother bathing the child, etc. All these were painted with natural colors. Now, something very strange happened recently. More than 40 paintings from these exhibitions were recently discovered at Gujarat Vidyapith, the university which was founded by Gandhiji on the 18th of October 1920. They were locked up in a forgotten cupboard. It's a priceless treasure. And when it was discovered, they found layers of dust on them. Some of them were partially destroyed. So now they are cleaning it up and trying to restore them. Gandhiji's cottage in Sevagram Ashram did not have any artwork. Nanda Babu's disciple Amritlal Vegad has narrated this interesting episode in his book Smritionu Shantiniketan, that is Shantiniketan of Recollection. Nanda Babu one day carved a spinning wheel on the clay wall of Gandhiji's cottage. Gandhiji noticed it and was happy. A few days later, Nanda Babu hung a painting in Bapu's cottage. In this painting was depicted Gautam Buddha holding close to his chest a handicapped baby lamb whose mother was being taken as an offering to King Bimbisar's sacrificial pit of the altar. Nanda Babu's original painting on the same theme, which was made in 1928, is in the collection of the National Gallery of Modern Art in Delhi. Something similar was made for Bapu Kutir. Gandhiji kept that painting with great care. What had attracted Bapu? Was it his affection for Nanda Babu? Or was it the beauty of the painting? Or was it Buddha's compassion that had held the little mute lamb in his embrace? Perhaps all the three were valid. Music is also an art and very close to Gandhiji's heart. According to Gandhiji, music means rhythm, order. Its effect is electrical. It immediately soothes. In the book Satyagraha in South Africa, written by Gandhiji, and the first edition, which was published in 1928, Gandhiji mentions an episode of the almost fatal assault on him in Transvaal in the year 1908. Mir Alam, who had assaulted him, was his old client and used to seek Gandhiji's advice in all his affairs. But he did not approve Gandhiji cooperating with the Registrar of Asiatics, who was going to issue a certificate after obtaining the impression of 10 fingers. Gandhiji wanted to be the first one to obtain that certificate. But even before he could enter the office, he was hit on the head. He fell and became unconscious. He was taken by a Baptist minister, Mr. Joseph Doak, to his house. A doctor stitched his wounds on the cheek and upper lip. He was in great pain. The moment he gained consciousness, his very first request was to release Mir Alam and his associates. He said, those who have committed the act did not know what they were doing. This reminds of Jesus Christ. He had said the same. His pain in the ribs and teeth was almost unbearable. He requested Pester's little daughter Olive to sing for him his favorite English hymn, Lead Kindly Light. Olive sang it in her melodious voice. Gandhiji has recorded that the song relieved him from the pain. He has also mentioned in Young India that music has given me peace. I can remember occasions when music instantly tranquilized my mind when I was greatly agitated over something. Music has helped me to overcome anger. On a personal note, I would like to add one more incident. Pannalal Ghosh was a famous Indian flautist from Bengal. My mother had interviewed him for a Gujarati magazine edited and published by my father. Now, during their conversation, Panna Babu said that when Gandhiji was not well during his stay in Mumbai at Juhu, he had gone to play the flute for him along with his younger brother Nikhil Ghosh, who was a tabla player. Panna Babu was given only 10 minutes to be with Gandhiji. So he stopped playing flute after 10 minutes. Gandhiji requested him to play more. Then he played for 45 minutes. Gandhiji was so happy that he wrote on a piece of paper, Bansuri bahut madhur bajai, Mo ka Gandhi. For Panna Babu, this was the highest compliment he had ever received. And that little piece of paper was his greatest award. Actually, Panna Babu didn't receive any award during his lifetime, but he received this from Gandhiji. Development of the mind is one of the essential characteristics of culture as per the dictionary meanings. Gandhiji has also spoken about spirituality as an essential hallmark of culture, which is one's inclination, attitude towards various things, people and incidents in life. So what is spirituality according to Gandhiji? He says, spirituality is not a matter of knowing scriptures and engaging in philosophical discussions. It's a matter of heart. A culture of unmeasurable strength. Fearlessness is the first requisite of spirituality. Cowards can never be moral. Gandhiji's views on art and culture were to create unity and harmony among the masses. And when we talk about literature, we tend to look into the past and talk about ancient literature written in all Indian languages as if that is the starting point. Let us see how Gandhiji interprets the great epic, the Mahabharata. And I quote him, I regard Duryodhana and his party as a baser impulses in man, and Arjuna and his party as the higher impulses. The field of battle is our body. An eternal battle is going on between the two camps, and the poet seer has vividly described it. Krishna is the dweller within, ever whispering in a pure heart. Like the watch, the heart needs the winding of purity, or the dweller ceases to speak. This is such a wonderful statement, that there is positivity and negativity. They both exist in our minds. But we all have in our conscience. But that needs to be pure. We have to take care of that. And that is like winding that Krishna within us, winding that voice, inner voice of ours. If we do not take care of it, it will stop talking. So brevity and lucidity are the hallmark of Gandhiji's language and thought. The quintessence of this huge epic spread over 18 parvas, comprising 100,000 shlokas, is given by Gandhiji in these 5 sentences. He further says that it is the duty of every cultured man or woman to read sympathetically the scriptures of the world. Respect for the diversity of religious scriptures of the world is the characteristic of a cultured person. Way back in 1938, while talking about literature, Gandhiji had said that it does not decry the English language or its noble literature. He encouraged Indian writers to build on their heritage. He did encourage translations from other language literature. For example, he said, I do not need to learn Bengali to know the beauties of Rabindranath's matchless productions. I get them through good translations. Gujarati boys and girls do not need to learn Russian to appreciate Tolstoy's short stories. They learn them through good translations. Here I would like to emphasize the word good. It has to be a good translation, otherwise we would do a lot of injustice to the original author. I was working with the National Book Trust India for 30 years in different capacities. Initially, we published books in India's 13 major languages, including English. Now a couple of more languages I added. Now these books are being published under different series, like books for children, books for the youth, books for neoliterates, books on science, there are various biographies, and there are general books published under the series called India, the Land and the People. And there is also a series called Adan Pradhan, under which novels and short stories are translated from one Indian language to another. So we are always in the need of good translators who have a good command of both languages. And if it is a book on science, then a translator should be a subject expert as well. So literature of one language can reach out to many more readers through translations. The use of the language also varies from age group to age group, from rural to urban, and so on. So 30 years in the National Book Trust was a great learning experience for me. There is one literary organization in Gujarat called Gujarat Sahitya Parishad. It was founded in 1905. In 1936, Gandhiji had become its 12th president. Each president is expected to address the audience during their annual conference. In 1936, Gandhiji was extremely busy with various satyagrahas and other activities. He had no time to prepare a scholarly lecture for the conference. He apologized to the audience and the organizers for having come unprepared. The issue which was always on the top of his mind was well-being of common people. So he told the writers that they should write in the language that is understood by less educated people of the villages. He appealed to them to write many, many books for rural folks. And when you know who your readers are, your thoughts start flowing. Your pen will run on the paper or your fingers on the computer. Gandhiji's life and work were for Sarvodaya, the welfare of all, and Antyodaya, the welfare of the last and the lowest. It is important to work with his spirit. Without that spirit, we would only be cheating ourselves and also others. I would like to conclude with an interesting episode narrated by Acharya J.B. Kriplani. Acharya Kriplani was also Gandhiji's close associate. And 2 months after Gandhiji's assassination, in the month of March, 49 of his associates met at Sevagram at Wardha to discuss what to do now. Gandhiji is gone. Who will guide us? So these 49 had a brainstorming, and in that meeting, Kripalani ji narrated one very, very interesting and great learning experience for all of us. And I quote him. At one time, we were working in Bihar, and some of my students were with me. One day I noticed that a number of them were not wearing kurtas, just short dhotis and a cloth flung across their shoulders. I asked the reason, and they said, Bapu doesn't wear a kurta these days, so we do not either. I said, when Bapu saw hungry and naked people, he felt his body burning in his kurta, as if it were on fire. That is why he took it off and threw it away, to be free of that burning sensation. You feel no such burning. So what need for you to throw your kurta away? Following Bapu's path does not mean that we should imitate him in every detail. Some people do so to the extent of trying to present themselves as more developed versions of the original. They want to impress upon the world that the teacher was just the rough model and the pupils are finished articles. We should exercise caution. What I mean to say is that we should work in the spirit of Gandhiji, not just mimic his externals, unquote. So when we are talking of Gandhiji in the 21st century, we are focusing on the spirit. His passion and compassion, his determination and conviction. All of us have a specific role to play to create happy and harmonious world. Let's do our best. Thank you very much for your patience.
Thank you very much, ma'am. We now request our principal, Ms. Bharti Tholambia, to present the vote of thanks.
Honorable Keynote Speaker, Dr. Varsha Das, Gandhian scholar, writer, art critic, and literature, Ms. Aruna Roy, guest of honor, honorary mentor, Mr. Anupam Martins, members of the governing body of St. Stephen's School Society, Ajmer, distinguished guests, members of the faculty, and my dear students. On behalf of the management, staff, and students of St. Stephen's School, Ajmer, I express my gratitude to Dr. Varsha Das for having so willingly consented to deliver the keynote address at the 19th Dr. Mrs. Deepa Martins Memorial Lecture and sharing the relevance of Gandhiji's ideals and their universal applicability at all times. We will adopt the ideas you shared with us through our academic session so that we continue to reflect these values in our pursuit of nurturing minds that are well-rounded in all spheres, rooted in the ideology, Satya and Ahimsa. Your sharing of details from Gandhiji's life would stay with us, sweetening our minds, just like the taste of the mango you mentioned. We are also grateful for the books you shared with us. We promise to read and digest them in entirety and put them into practice. I extend my sincere thanks to Ms. Aruna Roy, mentor and well-wisher of the school, for being instrumental and personally committed to making these memorial lectures successful each year. In the end, I again express my sincere thanks to Dr. Varsha Das, Ms. Aruna Roy, members of the governing body, and all the distinguished guests present here and those who have joined us virtually for being here with us. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. You are requested to rise for the National Anthem.